everyone. I have stage 4 lung cancer, but yet I climbed Mammoth Mountain from the very bottom up to the very peak at 11,000 feet.
My first oncology appointment, he told me I had 9 months to live. I have always been very aware of cancers. I've had a couple family members who have had cancer. Very making sure all my moles are good on my skin by dermatologists, making sure I have breast exams, making sure I have cervical exams. Lung cancer was honestly the number one cancer I thought I would never get, because no one ever educated me that non-smokers could get lung cancer. No one. My result came through before the doctor had even spoken to me, and it said multiple lesions on liver and lungs. And this just started to spiral in my head. Like, what is this? I don't understand. My name's Samantha M. So who am I? So Samantha is a super active outdoor adventurer. I love the outdoors. I love hiking. I love backpacking. I love camping. Anything to do with nature and being outside is where I belong. I also have a German Shepherd. He's 9 years old. And then I have a husband called Justin. I have been married for 7 years. He is my absolute world and soulmate.
Okay, you can let him go.
So I went on a women's trip to India in March of this year. 20 of us, I'd never met them, who were going on this adventure together, traveling India for 10 days. And prior to the trip, felt completely normal, no issues whatsoever. And when I came back from the trip, I developed a cough, and not even a big cough, just a very small cough and some chest pressure on my chest. And the air pollution is not the best in India, and so a lot of people actually developed coughs, so I didn't think anything of it. But the chest pressure was really bothering me, and 2 weeks after my trip, I was still hiking 4 or 5 miles a day, but there was a lot of pressure going on. So I went to urgent care, and he listened to my chest, and he said, let's do a chest x-ray to see what's going on. And did a chest x-ray, and it came back that my entire left lung was full of fluid, not even partial, the entire lung, and it was fully collapsed. And he said, you need to go to the emergency room immediately. And still very naive to it, thinking, oh, it's maybe some weird virus I contracted from India. So I went to the emergency room, and they admitted me right away and put in a chest tube, which was not a pleasant experience. And they ended up draining 3 liters of fluid from my lungs. They took that off for testing, and meanwhile they did multiple CT scans on me. And the wonderful world of technology in this day and age, we get notified of news through apps, medical apps. And so even though I was in the hospital admitted, I was getting information from scans back through the apps. And so my result came through before the doctor had even spoken to me, and it said multiple lesions on liver and lungs. And this just started to spiral in my head. Like, what is this? I don't understand. The infectious disease doctor came to me and started asking me a ton of questions because they thought I might have tuberculosis, because I'd lived in lots of foreign countries and traveled to lots of foreign countries. Um, so they were very confused themselves, running tons of tests. And unfortunately, on like day 3 of the hospital admission, they were like, okay, we've had a chance to look at a biopsy of your liver, one of the lesions in there, and your fluid in your lungs, and it's looking to be more and more like cancer. And they couldn't give me a guarantee at that point, but he was like, this really is looking like it. And they were like, we're going to discharge you. We'll wait for confirmation, obviously, but we're lining up an oncology appointment for you right away. And that's when my world just spiraled. Lung cancer was honestly the number one cancer I thought I would never get, because no one ever educated me that non-smokers could get lung cancer. I was like, oh, that's for smokers. And so to be told you have cancer, let alone a cancer that you never even imagined you would get, was just off the charts for me to process. So I was living in Missoula, Montana. My husband was stationed there for the army, and as soon as I got diagnosed, the wait just for the general oncologist, because there was no special lung oncologist there, because it was such a small town, was 2 weeks. And so that time period was awful. Just not knowing the unknown. At that point, it was confirmed through the app that I did have cancer. But I had no doctor to really bounce anything off, ask questions, nothing. And so that's when my husband was like, okay, we'll see this oncologist here, but let's get you to a research hospital. So my husband, he's a 19-year Army veteran at this point. Was used to be a combat medic in Iraq and Afghanistan, so he's seen a lot. And I had never seen him cry ever in our entire marriage. And when I got that diagnosis in the original hospital in Missoula, he went outside the hospital and just broke down and cried. Sorry, this is when I get emotional about it because I care so much about him. It was that was really hard to see, and that was almost harder for me to see than me receiving the news personally, because I know that when I'm gone eventually, I'm gone, and he's the one that is still around. And because we're so young, it was just heartbreaking to me knowing that I'm not going to be around and necessarily be with him when we're 80 years old is just gut-wrenching. And so it's really hit him hard. He's been an incredible caregiver. He's been to every single appointment. He now handles the app for me and looks at all of my scan results. I mean, he's been exceptionally supportive. I couldn't ask for a better caregiver. But I would say it's probably had more of an impact on him than it has on me. At that point, it didn't even say what stage I was, and not being, too familiar with the cancer world, I didn't know what stage 1 versus stage 4 was. I had no idea. So I genuinely was in this world of not knowing anything other than I had non-small cell lung cancer. I was spiraling on Google, which is not your best friend in this time of diagnosis, looking at statistics, looking at what stage I might be. And through Google, I figured out I was stage 4, which is a horrible way to figure it out. And then the statistics of 5-year survival. And, I was doing even more digging, and then I came across mutations. And I was like, oh, well, maybe I have a mutation. And then I saw all this different stuff on mutations. And so when I went into that initial oncology visit, I had a list of questions, but the number one was, can I get a biomarker test for genetic mutations? And he said, absolutely. It was on my list. You're good. So I learned a lot about mutations in that 2 week period. It really was just this 2 week window of unknown and fear and concern and thinking I didn't have long to live, honestly. And my first oncology appointment in Missoula, he told me I had 9 months to live, which I hope to anyone that is diagnosed in the future. This, and just disclaimer, this was before he even knew what mutation I had. No one should be told how long they have to live like that. It's not helpful. It doesn't help anyone. And it set my mind back a long way in terms of, okay, I've got this. I can do as well as I can for a long period of time. For him to tell me I had 9 months was just devastating. It's 45 minutes to the Huntsman Center. So let's see if we can get the army to move me. And within a month, the army approved the move. They have been so supportive, and my work have also been so supportive. And so I'm very grateful for that, because I know a lot of people are not in that situation, especially people that are young and have cancer and full-time jobs.
Oh my
What I will
God.
say is, number one is to advocate for yourself constantly to get what you need to get done. And so I was pretty, I don't know if aggressive is the right word, but forceful in messaging the Huntsman saying I need to get in as soon as possible. The general oncologist referred me. This is their letter. So I was lucky or fortunate, or I don't know what the right word is, but to get the best thoracic oncologist at the Huntsman, who's very hard to get, within a week. So, and I don't know if that's because I was quite forceful with me trying to get in, or it was a matter of they looked at my chart and saw how severe of stage 4 I was, so to speak. It's probably a combination. But they got me in very quickly, and they wanted to do scans all over again. So they did a CT scan. I had not had a PET scan at that point, so they also did a PET scan. And then they said, we're sending biomarker testing off the blood one. And then we're also going to take a sample from Missoula and submit that as a tissue sample as well. So they were pretty adamant that they did not want to start any treatment until my biomarker testing came back. So I believe the blood biomarker testing results took about 2 weeks. Meanwhile, my lung was continuing to fill up with fluids, so I was having to get drained on a regular basis, but I was still hiking. I was still active. Nothing was stopping me. I was also hiking at 10,000 feet elevation. There were no issues there. I was just tired a lot. I felt very, very tired. That was probably my number one thing. And so my biomarker testing came back, and I think it came up through the app again, and it said HER2, and it said primary treatment, and then there was like a blank space. And secondary, there was something there, right? There was like a circle and a green check and a name of a drug. And I had never heard of HER2 in my life. Never heard of it. It wasn't on any of the sites about mutations. It wasn't even on the other mutation list that was outside of ALK and EGFR. So I'm like, what on earth is this? And what am I gonna do with this? And honestly, I had a breakdown crying, because I had been part of groups that talked about EGFR and ALK and all these great drugs, and people doing so well as young people on these targeted therapies. And I was just like, this is it. I keep on getting hit over and over again with bad luck, and this is the final straw. And I really thought that that was the end of my journey because there was no primary targeted treatment for HER2. I spoke to her within 24 hours of knowing that I had HER2, and she spent about an hour with me just explaining everything, what was on the horizon for treatments, what was currently under clinical trials, and all of this hope. And so I went from absolute turmoil in 24 hours of thinking this was literally the end, I have the worst prognosis, to, oh wow, there could actually be some hope here. Um, and so that changed my entire attitude, and I'm so grateful for it. And I know a lot of HER2 patients, when you get that test on that piece of paper back, it doesn't tell you about the hope. It doesn't tell you about what is coming. And so people are naive to it and have no idea unless they're educated by other people. So my oncologist, he's incredible. He called me right away and he's like, look, this is not what I was expecting either. I really thought you were, XYZ mutation. But this is what we have. And he said, and he was trying to find silver linings to it, right? He was like, yes, it's not the best that you have to come in every 3 weeks to get treatment, but your mutation works with immunotherapy. Your mutation works with, or can work with, traditional chemo. But he was giving me some hope. And so that is all I needed. I am also fortunate where my coworker's husband's best friend is a HER2 expert, ironically. Very, very fortunate. Very weird how that all works. But he's been an incredible resource that I can just text and get information from, or reassurance or whatever of, is this the right path for HER2 specifically that maybe my oncologist wouldn't be fully aware of. So having those two resources have been invaluable.
One day past chemo, 11,000 feet.
So he laid out what chemotherapy I would be on, what immunotherapy I would be on. He also offered up a clinical trial which actually split chemo and immunotherapy separately by a week instead of combining them together for a couple of rounds. And he thought that I would be a good candidate for that. Meanwhile, the HER2 expert that I was talking to was telling me about an amazing clinical trial for a drug for HER2 that they were looking for people that had not been treated yet. And so I was told about that. My oncologist here did not know about that trial. And so I brought that up with him, and he was kind enough to look into the research, look into the statistics, and literally weigh up the options for me. And he said, at the end of the day, it's up to you which one you would like to proceed with, but this is my thoughts. And so he was really leaning towards traditional chemo and immunotherapy just because immunotherapy had foundational success in the long run, and the clinical trial was still early days in knowing, what the outcome would be in the long term. And so I also didn't want to wait, right? So a clinical trial in another hospital involves flying, getting scans again, etc. I just wanted to start treatment. So we decided on traditional chemo and immunotherapy and started that within a week. I'm responding exceptionally well. I have 55% reduction across the board. He said I'm the top 5 response rate he's ever seen. So I'm responding extremely well, and I'm very fortunate where I don't have that many side effects at all. I have a couple of days of low energy, but other than that, not really anything. So I have been able to just live my life, hike, work, do my thing. And I spoke to my husband the other day, and this is a weird thing to say for a stage 4 cancer patient, but chemotherapy and immunotherapy can do wonders. There's a horrible misconception, especially right now, which is upsetting me quite a bit, that chemo and immunotherapy are awful and they don't do anything and all of this. And I get very upset about that because it has literally changed my life and it has done amazing things for my body. And I haven't felt this well in years. And it makes me think, like, looking back now, even though I didn't have very apparent symptoms, I was tired all the time. I would take naps during the day. I would be exhausted after 10 hours of sleep. I lost 5 pounds when I've never lost weight in my life. There were very subtle signs. And if you look at pictures of me, I didn't look well. And so I'm feeling great right now. And it's like a double-edged sword because I have stage 4 cancer, but the chemo and immunotherapy are reducing my cancer burden so much that I just feel like normal Samantha again. That there is a lot of hope. Our mutation is not an immediate death sentence by any means. Just because we don't have a targeted therapy right now does not mean it's the end of the world and the end of the line. There are options out there, but also knowing that there are targeted therapies coming out very soon that are, through the clinical trial statistics, work exceptionally well, is invaluable to know. Especially being like an ultra fit, healthy person who, you see on social media, you see on the news a lot about if you eat healthy and you're fit and you do exercise, you're not going to get cancer, or it's a very low chance you're going to get cancer. And I don't like that at all. It makes me very angry and very upset because I feel like then that makes people think, who are fit and healthy and doing all the right things, that they are not going to be touched by cancer. And so I think it's critical that people are aware that cancer does not discriminate. It doesn't care if you're fit and healthy. It will be in whoever it wants to be. And that's a fact. And so the reason why I say that is I think it's even more important to listen to your body, be in touch with changes. And I've been shouting this from the rooftops on my own social media, is that don't wait, go and be an advocate for yourself and make sure if your gut is telling you something is wrong and you need something to be checked out, and your doctor says, oh, it's fine, don't worry about it, we'll monitor it, go get a second opinion. Or push and push, and be the person that maybe you're not really deep down inside, but be that person and get the answers you need to get. Because at the end of the day, doctors see so many patients, they're not going to get everything right. And you have to be an advocate for yourself.